Let's begin by talking about this generation that's squeezed, mostly boomers, I guess, squeezed between the aging parents and the boomerang kids, the millennials that have come home. Is this a new phenomena? And what trend is driving it? Is it new?
It's not necessarily a new phenomena. I think it's been around for a bit of time, but I think what's driving it now is that the younger generation isn't necessarily leaving as soon as we might expect them to. So they're staying around a lot longer. So you have people, parents in that middle generation being squeezed far longer than they expected to because of those boomerang children.
As parents, we're probably wondering, I think you're right in that assessment, but we're probably wondering, why are our kids hanging around? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, part of it's economic driven. The economy is more competitive for new jobs. Older workers are working much longer and not opening up spots for new, recently minted graduates to get those jobs. And people are working longer because so many people are living so much longer. And so while all of this is not a new phenomenon, there's just a lot more people in it now, and some are better equipped than others really to deal with it.
Have you seen that in your work?
We have. We have been planning for increasing life expectancy for many decades in our firm. So we were kind of prepared for that part and helping aging parents. That's just part of the deal as the population. We've got 3 clients over 100 now. We have 9 clients in their 90s, and they're not new. They've just been with us decades and decades and decades, and they're still with us. But the returning millennials is relatively new, and there were always a few, but that percentages have really exploded in the last few years.
And what are you seeing in your work?
Absolutely. We see more and more employees come to us with concerns about their children, concerns about their parents, work stress, trying to work towards their own retirement, yet at the same time they feel a lot of both emotional and financial pressure to be there for their children and to be available for their aging parents as well.
Is there more stress from one side or the other, the parent side or the child side?
I guess it really depends, but I think that more parents feel like they have greater responsibility to launch those children than the aging parents. And if your parent is aging well without a lot of health issues, then there's not a lot of pressure there. But once your parents' health starts to decline, then they feel a great deal of pressure to provide support for them in their medical care.
I would imagine that in a way, one can expect a parent's health to decline, and you might have to help that parent in their old age. Not so necessarily with your children. You do expect them, they get to a certain point in their lives when they're young adults, and they're gone. They're supposed to be gone, right?
Right.
And they don't go. So I would imagine that's one of the stress factors, isn't it?
It is one of the stress factors, but surprisingly, parents spend a great deal of time trying to launch those children regardless of the age, because the children's success is the parents' success. So they spend a lot of effort, energy, dollars to launch their children to be successful people, because then they too feel like they've been successful parents.
That gets me to the question of the guilt factor. Is there a guilt factor involved there too?
I think there's a guilt factor involved somewhat in that. I think there's more of a guilt factor actually with their aging parents, because they're spending so much time and money with the children who are probably like mid to late 20s at this point. They're spending so much energy there that they're feeling a little guilty that they're not spending it with their parents who may need them a little bit more based on their medical issues.
Let's talk about the financial issues just a little bit, because this seems like a recipe that could ruin your retirement.
It absolutely could if you lose sight of the importance of keeping your own financial independence as a priority, because I mean, health issues for aging parents that are uninsured or underinsured can be extremely expensive. While at the same time, the Chinese water torture of a child who doesn't leave, and the health insurance issues and the car insurance and the filling the refrigerator. Those things, they're not as big, but they just go on and continue, and you just start wondering, connecting the dots as if they're never going to end.
And I would imagine some people are in situations where they know they have to delay their retirement in order to cope
They
with this
do,
situation.
and there's always some resentment that comes with that. And in our work, where we're having our clients saying, you need to expect for at least one of you to be alive at 95, and the statistics are pretty compelling. If a man and woman are married at 65, there's a 36% chance that one of them will still be alive at 95. That's a long time for retirement, and so the age 65 number, which a lot of people have hardwired in their brains, is just not appropriate for most people.
You know, you mentioned with the millennials, should we just say no to our kids? I mean, is that an option, to just say no to them?
There comes a point in time where no is a complete sentence in and of itself to your children. And there comes a time where that's appropriate. So now, certainly if you have children who have disabilities, health problems, mental health problems, you want to be aware of the support that they need. But for other children, there comes a point in time where you want them to be successful, gainfully employed, looking for their own place. It used to be where kids would go to college and then they'd graduate from college and they'd launch into some career. But now kids are going to college and then coming back home and then maybe staying there for a period of time, or successfully out on their own, losing a job, some type of financial situation occurs, and then they come back home. So they've been successfully gone for a couple of years and then they come back, and that's even harder. That adjustment is much harder.
Well, as a parent, how do you cope with that?
Certainly, I think you need to be open and honest in your communication with your child about what the expectancy is here. So if your child is coming back into the home, what's the length of time you're going to allow this to happen? What are the financial responsibilities of that child living in your home? Are they paying rent? Are they paying a portion of the groceries? Are they doing their own laundry? Our job is to help them become independent. It's not to coddle them at any age. So those lines of communication need to be open and very clear. I would suggest that there even be a contract. And it certainly doesn't have to be a legal contract, but there be a discussion around the table with written things down. You sign it, I sign it, and let's move on.
Have you seen situations like that?
Our perspective is usually limited to the financial side of it, and our approach is to say, we want to help you achieve these goals, which is at some point being financially independent. That involves you doing X, Y, Z, usually saving a certain amount of money. We call it PYF, pay yourself first. After that is done, if there are resources left over to help children, fine, that's fine. But it's a matter of prioritizing, which is if you allow that to overtake all the other goals, because those things are further down the road, you can get into trouble quickly.
Does this squeezed situation affect men and women differently?
I think it does. Women tend to take on a little bit more of the emotional toll of the squeezed generation, in addition to doing a lot of the caretaking of the aging parent. So women more often, now certainly men do this, but women more often are the ones who accompany a parent to a doctor's appointment or to grocery shopping or whatever it is that they may need. So it certainly impacts them in those ways. And then when you're working with a couple around these issues, they may have differing opinions as to what should happen with their children. So you might have one part of the parent wanting to provide more for the child than the other parent wanting to provide. And so now there's disagreement, and sometimes it impacts the marital relationship as they raise these children.
Is the answer in situations like that to get together as a family, to talk it out? Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like you have to have everything out on the table and open.
Absolutely. Open communication is key to solving all of these difficulties, but we don't always work in a society or in families where open communication is the key. So I certainly think that that's a coping mechanism and is a successful strategy is to sit down and hear from all parts of the family. So, Dad, what do you think about this? Mom, what do you think about this? And hear from the kids, because they may have a great point, and maybe a compromise is the best solution here.
Are there support groups for something like this?
I have not heard of a support group for the boomerangs, but I am sure that out there, there's so many home care agencies that certainly offer supportive groups.
There are caregiver support groups for that
right.
side of the issue.
But not necessarily
Not
for
the
the
millennial
boomer.
side.
I think that's called happy hour.
Perhaps so, perhaps so. Maybe I was going to ask you how you cope with this. Maybe that's the way you do it. But let's close out with your best advice to someone who's in that squeezed situation.
I think along the lines that you said, pay yourself first, I think that they also have to take care of themselves first. So don't forget your own health. Don't forget your own emotional needs. If you always do something with friends on a Thursday evening, make sure you continue to do that on a Thursday evening. Take care of yourself. So to pay yourself first. So that's one, I think.
And you said, obviously, pay yourself.
Well, and remember that the best gift you will ever give your children and your parents is to very fiercely guard your own ultimate financial independence. Because if you jeopardize that and to take care of them during this time, they may or may not choose to repay that down the road. If you guard that independence, everything else, will usually fall into place. But you've got to really guard that fiercely.
Thank you both for being on The Best Times. Nice discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.